What's going on, everybody? It is your boy Chris, man. We are here at the Work Hard, Play Harder podcast. It is Sunday, September 29th, 2024. My name is Chris Drummond. I am a freelance sports reporter based out of Minnesota here. I'm also proprietor of this podcast, Work Hard, Play Harder, where I bring individuals on to talk about their why, talk about who they are outside of the occupation as well. I have a special guest that's coming on with me today. Her name is Louisa Frahm. She is the SEO Director at ESPN and has been so for the past couple of years. But she's also been the same title at the Los Angeles Times, also Time Incorporated, and TMZ, just to name a few places where she's been SEO. SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization. She's the director of that, and she would definitely hop on here and let you know what she does for ESPN in that regard. We're going to break bread with her and also ask her some fun questions and just learn about her journey. So without any further ado, I introduce to you the beautiful, the talented Louise.
Hello, how are you?
Hello, how we doing there, dear?
Good. I see your San Diego Padres hat. Did you wear that on purpose because you were meeting with me?
You know, I'm from. So this is where I grew up. I grew up in San Diego. Uh,
I don't know if we ever talked about that, but me as well. I'm a San Diego native, and that's so cool.
oh,
It's been really fun watching them this season. They've had a great run.
absolutely, absolutely. I definitely rep my team. 858-619. Now, where did you grow
I'm
up? Where did you grow up in
619.
San
Yeah,
Diego?
that's still my phone number. I'm 619. My family, we lived all over the county when I was growing up. So I was born in Hillcrest, and then we moved to El Cajon, La Mesa, and then we totally switched gears up to North County, Carmel Valley, Leucadia, Encinitas, Rancho Santa Fe, and then most recently, about let's see, I think it's been like 4 months ago. My mom sold her big house and moved into a really fun downtown LA apartment, or LA, excuse me. I lived in LA for 10 years, so I think my mind always goes there. A downtown San Diego apartment. It's actually right in the East Village within walking distance of Petco Park. So that's super fun. And she's been going to a ton of games. And yeah, we've been really big San Diego sports fans. Like I love talking with the native who got sick, but back in the day, may Qualcomm rest in peace. But we had season tickets when it was the Padres and the Chargers, like at Qualcomm. And those are some of my favorite memories growing up, even though Qualcomm was never pretty, but I have so many like
Right.
happy memories of tailgating there. And it was always kind of funny to me when they opened Petco Park and it was so like shiny and it had that sort of like allure to it. Like Qualcomm was the exact opposite, but I always really loved it because of the people and the energy and stuff. And I don't have to tell you then that, a common question is like, oh, because we were massive Chargers fans. We really did love
Without
the
question.
San
Yes.
Diego Chargers, we loved, but it just, kind of similar. I was digging into the coverage, around the A's and then leaving Oakland. And it really brought back like a lot of deja vu for how I felt when, the Chargers got ripped out of San Diego.
Yeah.
Because, we really were so loyal. And it was the same thing that all the A's fans were saying of like, you have this great fan base, but it was mostly about like greed and money to move to LA, where truly I can tell you, like I lived in LA for 10 years before I moved to Connecticut for this job. And that like the Chargers, like, I mean, yes, they got a few hangers on from San Diego and from their other fan base, but generally it's like on the list of LA teams, they're far down on that docket, unless they
Right.
somehow end up with a winning lineup. So totally get it. But anyways, I just had to say that I love your hat and I'm always happy to, support San Diego sports and the Padres in particular, they had a tough go for a while. So it's been very exciting to actually get some promising talent on the team and be able to watch them again.
Absolutely. No, no question. Yeah. I grew up there. Like I said, went to elementary, middle, high school there. I remember
What
going
school did you
to,
go to?
well, I went to Kearney High School in Linda Vista,
Okay.
Taft Middle School in Sarah Mesa. And I lived in Normal Heights, but I also lived
Okay.
right where uh, the Costco is, where it's right by Qualcomm Stadium, like right across, right
Nice.
where
I know
Qualcomm
right where
Stadium.
that one is. Yeah.
Yep. That's where I lived across the street in those apartments.
Very
So
cool.
Yeah, so absolutely. So I was just big time a huge fan. Obviously, LT was one of my favorite players.
Oh, Junior
Only
Seau. I mean, we actually a fun, and I loved LT as well. But yeah, like fun fact, we lived in Junior Seau's previous home in La Mesa. That was like a really cool kind of thing. Yeah, that was one of the places where we lived. But totally loved LT, loved Junior, and may he rest in peace. His story was so sad at the end.
no
But yeah,
question.
Philip Rivers was kind of the last like Charger that we really liked because he just was such a big kid. So even when the Chargers did leave San Diego, I followed him for a little bit because I just always really loved his passion for the team. But then I think when he left, and obviously like when Harbaugh went to the LA like Chargers, like that I was interested just because it's a pump of
Sure.
coaching talent, and Herbert is great, and like I do track them a little bit. It's just
Love Herbert. Love
yeah.
him.
Yeah, Herbert has a great spirit. So there'll always be like a connection. It's just nothing could really compare to those glory days in the 90s.
Now, do you remember when the stadium was called Jack Murphy Stadium?
Yes, I do. I go back that far.
Okay.
For sure. No, I mean,
Yeah,
I do. Yeah. And I mean, it just, yeah, we always tailgated as well. So I just remember like, I mean, that is something about like Petco Park that's a little bit different just because it's in downtown. But in Qualcomm, because they had just like the giant, parking lots, and that was how they were set up.
right,
Like I
right.
just love tailgating. Like we had a friend with an RV and they would come out. Like the whole culture of it was very fun.
But see, who would have thunk that you and I would be hitting it off just like this? San Diego native. That's absolutely amazing. Because I remember when there was two teams playing in there. It was the Chargers and the Padres playing
They
in the
were
same stadium.
converted. Yeah, it was like a joint stadium, which like they don't even do anymore, really. But I remember always thinking it was very cool where it was like, within
Loved it.
a 2 day span or something, they would have to convert it over. It was, and then I mean, I really do love talking to locals about it, but I was actually just telling a friend last night who's from New England, and actually was, curious about living in San Diego and was maybe going to move there with her boyfriend. And I was telling her how, our joke with San Diego weather is that like, the coldest night of the year was always the Holiday Bowl at
Mhm.
Qualcomm. And it was like, oh
Sure.
my God, it's the coldest night of the year. And it's like 55, But
Right,
people would
right,
like freak out. And now that like I've lived in New England for 2 years, I mean, she like literally laughed out loud growing up in Connecticut. Her whole life, she's like, oh my God, people would think that. And I'm like, no, people are like out there in like beanies and Uggs, and you would think that it was like snowing, but it's only like 55.
right, right. Absolutely. No, I love that. I really do. I want to say thank you for hopping
Of
on my
course.
podcast.
I'm
Work hard, play harder.
excited.
I love this. I love this. I love the red hair. You look absolutely lovely today. I just want to say
Thank
that too. You're
you.
very welcome. Very welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm very excited, Yeah, I really love supporting like sports journalism in all of its different forms. And, when you reached out, like this kind of stuff is really important to me, just to always, be connected to the bigger community, even though obviously I really enjoy working at ESPN and everything that entails. I think it's always really cool to see what other, people in the space are up to. And yeah, I love to throw my support towards stuff like this. So I'm doing well, and I'm excited to dig in.
Absolutely, absolutely. And like I said, love to have you on. My first question, Louise, is the same with everybody that comes on here. What is your why? What is your why of doing what you do? Did you have any role models, inspirations maybe growing up? But what is your why of being in sports?
Being in sports. Oh man. I love that question. If that's like a kickoff question in every session, I think that's great. A few things come to mind because you kind of had like a multi-pronged question, so I'll answer it in a few sections. But
Sure, sure.
immediately when I think of sports, and what my why is with sports, my mind goes to my brother. So in my family, I'm one of three siblings, and my brother is the oldest, Matt. And he's 7 years older than me. And then my sister is in the middle, Jess. She's 4 years older than me, and then I'm the baby. And when we were growing up, my brother, coming in when he did, he has a very unique story when it comes to sports. He was born with cerebral palsy, so
Wow.
obviously that shakes up a family. A lot of adjustments are made.
But Matt, and this, I always really love the story. He didn't let that stop him from connecting with sports at a really, really young age. My mom always loves to tell the story that me and my sister, our first word was mama, and my brother's first word was ball. Which just really makes sense. And he just set like a total course for our family. And I mean, I would say it goes back even farther than my brother because, my dad was also just a really, really big sports fan. We're just a huge sports family. So I would say it even starts with him. Like my dad was from Indiana, so loved Hoosiers and everything like that. So we have a very deep, like kind of pedigree towards sports. But my personal why is my brother, because just growing up with his influence, like he got to a certain age where he decided that he no longer felt up for like playing sports. But when he
Sure.
made that transition, he really just became an encyclopedia of sports and was like, I want to know everything about them. Like, and it really was like any given question that someone would have in the moment, Matt would know. And he just dug into his mind, and it almost became this like trivia game when we were growing up,
Love
watching
it.
something on screen. And then, my mom or me turning to my brother and being like, hey, Matt, like in 1979, like what happened with that team? And he would just like, no. So he really had a huge influence on me, and we've always been very close. And fun fact, even with, his circumstances, my brother is the one who taught me how to shoot a basketball.
Wow.
Because he learned everything that he could about sports. So whether we were like watching games or just out at the cul-de-sac, like shooting for hours and hours and hours, trying to get it perfect, he really left an imprint on me that sports are, inherently fun. And that's actually something that, my director at work said to me during my interview process that I've reflected on quite a bit. And I think it's part of my why as well, that, we obviously all have tougher days. There's no job that's perfect. But she had said that to me in the interview process when I was, kind of going through the pros and cons and what I could expect. And she said that, literally sports are inherently fun. So imagine if you took this role that even if you encounter different challenges, it's, we aren't doing brain surgery here. So we can always have a lighthearted attitude and kind of let that carry us through some of those like tougher moments that come up. But yeah, with my brother, especially now that I'm in this role, I mean, when I got the job, he was the first person I wanted to tell because ESPN has always been like another family member in my house. We have it on constantly. We're also one of those families
Absolutely.
that has like 5 TVs in our house. So like we always have like a game on or just ESPN like Sports Center on. So it really did feel like, just like coming into the family officially because it had always been around. And I was so excited to tell Matt because, we grew up like loving Stuart Scott and, just
Yeah.
loving the network in general. So I knew that he would just be beyond tickled, and he was. And ever since I've been in this role now to kind of continue my why and what drives me, a big focus of my role, especially in the last like year, has been built around creating explainers. So what we
Okay.
call that in like the search world is just that basic, FAQ, like someone has a question, you provide a direct utility piece of content, that kind of, content. And, I really enjoyed any time that I come up with an explainer or I'm brainstorming them, I tap into my Matt. I'm always like, hey, if I was watching this game in real time, or I had been tracking the WNBA playoffs, whatever it is, like I truly do feel that my brother trained me for the role I'm in because the whole time when I was growing up, it would always be him throwing out stat lines or, oh, at this point in history, blah, blah, blah. So it's how my mind works when I'm watching sports. And I feel like, a big part of my role in seeing our catalog of that type of content grow has been just like tapping into his energy, on a regular basis. And it's been really fun. And every time I write a new one, I'll share it with him. And, my biggest, even though obviously I love page views, I love traffic, I love, all of those other indicators that a story did well.
Cool.
My favorite indicator is when my brother will say, like, I didn't know that, Lisa, great job. Or when he just says like, very interesting, like excellent work. Like when he gives his little sign off, I was like, all right, the master said that he liked it.
Awesome. I
um,
love it. I love it.
yeah. So I mean, I think like He's really huge. And then what's nice is, you know, again, my brother was the oldest, so he really had a trickle down effect with us. Like when Matt, you know, was very into sports, then, you know, my sister who came after him, Jess is, you know, the athletically gifted one out of the three of us. So Jess kind of took that approach with it, where it was like Matt was the encyclopedia, Jess was like the tri-varsity athlete, in particular, an incredible softball and basketball player. So it was always really fun actually like going out and supporting her. And even now she's a teacher and a coach. So it's been really cool to watch her kind of,
That's
you know,
pretty awesome.
train. Yeah, like train the next generation. Because she does, you know, like language arts, but then after school does girls basketball and girls softball. So that's always been very cool. And then, you know, I came last, and I think my natural, you know, slot within the family has always been being a cheerleader. And I literally was a cheerleader in high school. So I directly translated that, you know, into that role, which was very fun. But I also really take that cheerleader mentality to the work that I do in this space. It's always really crucial to me, especially with SEO, when you're, you know, managing this kind of strategy at a more traditional newsroom, even though digital marketing and this sort of work seems like, oh, we're in 2024, people should be so familiar with this. I
Mhm.
always remind myself that it's not super familiar to everybody, you know, especially if you were trained in a more traditional journalism sort of background. So I'm always trying to remind myself to tap into that cheerleader mentality and really reinforce like positive case studies. If, you know, we do things a certain way and then we see the results that we want, really lifting that up. You know, I love a great screenshot that can really show that, hey, something really excelled in different ways. And so I would say that's another part of my why in sports was, you know, growing up in that sort of cheerleader background, doing that in school, but now being a cheerleader, you know, in my own life, which has been great, and in my own work life. Yeah, so I mean, and then my mom really has just spearheaded the entire thing. I have to give her a shout out. I mean, my family is such a big driver for me in this role that I have and in working in sports. And mom just, you know, is the facilitator, right? Like she does it so well. Like she always wants us together at games, and, you know, is the ultimate, like, it's funny. We went to a Padre game recently, and like my mom is almost like the clap police at this point. Like she'll look over at you if you're not clapping and be like, so I do love
Wow.
like her commitment to
Yeah,
sports. Like we've always been that way, where it's like she would make sure that we had the season tickets, that we were able to, you know, be with our family and our friends at these events and just create that really magical environment that, you know, sports fosters for people. I mean, I feel really fortunate that that was a part of my life from the very beginning, and it's something that I want to continue to really promote for the rest of my days. So it's very family driven. I think that's like my biggest why that I have.
no, that's awesome. That really is. I love that answer. I want to ask you about your college choice as well. I want to ask you about that. What made you want to choose that school, and were there any other schools that were on your radar that you could have been persuaded to go to instead of the one you chose?
So it's a great question. When I was applying for schools, well, first off, I was fortunate to go to a college preparatory school. So literally, when I was, you know, growing up, I went to Francis Parker. I know we were talking about, but that's the school that I went to. And you know, so from like kindergarten, you know, you're reminded like, hey, college is going to be here only in, you know, so many years. Like you should be thinking about it. So we had it like embedded in our minds that, hey, you should be thinking about this, exploring options, seeing what you're connected to. So by
Absolutely.
the time, yeah, so by the time I got to junior year, where they really started emphasizing it, and it was like going on college visits and things like that. Um, I've always been one of those like personalities where, you know, I just love to have a lot of different options. So I almost like threw darts at a map of the United States and just like applied all over. I had, you know, quite a few schools on the East Coast. I mean, I'm from San Diego originally, but I'd never been afraid of like a new setting or a new challenge. And I thought it would be really cool to step outside my comfort zone with that. So yeah, New York was a big focus for me. I mean, I had always been interested in New York and I'd enjoyed my visits over there. And, you know, I also had schools on the West Coast. You know, I come from a USC Trojans family. So my mom definitely was pushing really hard for that. But then, you
Sure.
know, I even had, you know, Smith, the women's college, you know, on the East Coast.
Okay.
Yeah, that was on my list. So I was really open to a lot of different things. In addition to New York, I really liked Boston and applied to a few schools there. So yeah, it was mostly, I would say, an East Coast kind of West Coast split between the schools that I was looking into. So where I landed was actually a late addition. I hadn't really thought about Boulder, where I ended up going, but my sister, who I mentioned, she is, that 4-year slot ahead of me. So she was graduating from USC. And at that time, she, was kind of, debating what she was going to do next. And she eventually landed on Teach for America, that program, and she was going to
Okay.
do it in Denver, Colorado. So I
Mm.
remember when all that was happening, that, I thought like, well, if Jess was going to be in Denver, that would be really cool to, be nearby. And when I was looking into schools, I loved what I read about, Colorado, and I was really into it. And I figured, why not, like take a chance on it? And I hadn't even visited it. I really didn't know very much about it.
Wow.
Yeah, it was mostly just, hey, why not throw it in the ring? Like, especially if Jess is going to be there, I thought it would be very fun to consider. So I
Okay.
applied. And then, for me, the clincher, absolutely, and this would apply to so many different people, but the visit on campus, I went in the spring and I just fell in love with it. It literally was like a sitcom moment. That's what I always tell people, because I did a
Mm.
little spin and I was like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. Because the Flatiron Mountains really are, excuse my cat. My cat is always
No,
very
we good. We good. We got another visitor. I love it. I
I
love it.
know. No, she loves it. But yeah, so the Flatiron Mountains there are just so stunning, and there's something about that campus. It's also very cool being a sports person. It's one of the only college campuses where the football stadium is like right on campus. I will say, in those days, I was there from 2008 to 2012. Deion Sanders has made us more relevant than ever when it comes to football. Back when I was there, we definitely were not relevant in the way that we are now. But
Mm.
the thing that was really fun about it though was like, even if we weren't winning all the time, there was such a fun energy that really matched who I was, where it's like, hey, even if we don't win, we have the stadium on campus, everyone gets together, the camaraderie, and I really felt that like right away and how the school was packaged. Yeah, and I think having the proximity to my sister was huge. I really, just being very family oriented. My mom felt, really good about that, and I also felt good about that. And then yeah, I would say by the time the narrowing down process came, and you had certain schools you didn't get into, other schools. I actually ended up getting waitlisted at USC. And I also, didn't want a duplicate experience that my mom and sister had, right?
Right.
Because
You
even
wanted your
my
own experience.
yeah, because like even my
Look.
sister had just been at USC, and she did bring me up there for different events and things like that. And I really wanted to forge an entirely new path, like where no one in my family had been. So yeah, it really ended up working out that way, where certain schools I didn't get into, and then Boulder was on my final list because I did get accepted. And it was really everything that I could have wanted. I loved my college experience so much. It was great having those 4 years with my sister, because we had a lot of great like weekends together. I was only about like an hour, bus ride away from her, so we definitely met up frequently. I was able to join my sorority there, go Tri Delta. So that was a huge part of my life there. And then, that also was when I decided to, go the journalism route. And I really did enjoy the program that I had there, specifically with the
Awesome.
emphasis in broadcast news. So that was great. Yeah, I think I found, both reflecting on like that period of my life and then also my professional career that came after, there have been a lot of serendipitous, little windows. And I think my college really was one of those things, because it wasn't one where I had been thinking about it like my whole upbringing or anything like that. It really came in kind of in that final segment of when I was, brainstorming different options. And it was everything that I could have wanted. It really was. And, I have,
Love
I have no
that.
regrets about it.
I
Yeah.
love
And
that.
then I eventually, did grad school at USC. So it was nice that I didn't stay the black sheep forever, because I come from like a very dominant Trojan family. So my
Of
mom
course.
was, thrilled when I ended up getting my master's in communication management. During the pandemic, which was not planned, I started the program in January 2020. And I just had no idea where that year was going to go. But yeah, so it was very cool to also end up, with that sort of like USC hook in the family too.
That is awesome. It really is. I'm actually in grad school myself as of right
Congrats,
now.
that's great.
So I'm graduating in May of 25, which is
Yay.
great because a guy like myself, I'm in my 30s now. So I'm definitely happy about getting my master's. I love the fact that you talked about setting your own path. I
Yeah.
think that's amazing. Being able to,
What are you getting yours in?
well, mine would be in professional writing
Nice.
with
Very
sports
cool.
concentration, right? Because, you know, I'm a journalist. I like to write. And I got my undergrad in journalism and emerging media.
Nice. Okay.
So I just love that. I love that. And I love being able to tell through writing, but also broadcast as well. That's why I like the freelance route because I get to pick my stories that I want to do and people come to me
Absolutely.
with
Yeah.
stories. That's awesome. That's great. But I did work at publications in Atlanta, Georgia, where I graduated my undergrad, and I worked up here for 2 years as well. And I work with different publications now. So I love that, though. I love that the fact that you chose Boulder. I'm still wanting to go to a football game. I'm hoping that's going to happen. I have that on the list for sure, on my bucket list. Um,
I
so
want
I
to go to a
definitely,
Dion game. I haven't been to a Dion game, and I was so bummed that like last season when he really initially exploded, obviously watched all of them and was very, very excited. But yeah, I mean, I still have it on my list. Like, I want to see that
okay.
like in person, you know?
I love it. I love it. You and me both, no question. Now,
Yeah,
Louise, I'm gonna ask you some favorite questions. So you give me the 411 off of these favorite questions that I have for you. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do
All
it.
right, here we go. Favorite meal you like to cook?
Oh man, so I do. Oh, so that I personally make myself, just to clarify. So this would be a favorite meal that I like to cook.
Yes.
Okay, so a few different things come to mind, but I'm definitely going to speak like a San Diegan here. I am obsessed with Mexican food. I miss it a lot living out here. They're, they do their best, but it definitely doesn't compare to back home. So really any opportunity that I can get, I will do it myself here quite a bit because,
Okay.
it's my preference. So off of that, I really love to make enchiladas with like homemade like pico de gallo salsa, guacamole,
Mm,
margaritas, just like a
okay.
full-on fiesta in my house. I'm a big fan of enchiladas. I think like if I had to pick like one meal that, and I have quite a few on my kind of revolving list that I like to do. But the enchiladas kind of come to mind first. Another sentimental one that I would throw out there that if I had to pick like comfort food, I mean, like Mexican always is comfort food to me, but a little bit of a different sort of category.
Okay.
I'm actually, and I know this turns off some people, so I will say that, but for me, I'm definitely on the pro side. I love making tuna noodle casserole, actually. It takes me back to my grandma, who was, my absolute best friend in the whole world. And she passed away in 2015, but I always speak about her a lot and love to share stories about her and, make like her favorite foods because she would make that for me. And, I love to, use her recipe for that. And it tastes like a big hug because, we always had like shared that meal together. And that's another really big softy one for me, I'd say.
I totally understand that. I'm still bucket list. Also, I'm still waiting to go to Connecticut because I've never been to Connecticut because obviously that's where the ESPN studios are. I would love to take a tour there one day. And if I'm ever in Connecticut, I definitely have to hit you up because I want some Mexican food myself. That's no question.
Absolutely.
No question.
Absolutely. I mean, like, I will just say, if you're used to San Diego, it's definitely different
It's gonna be a step
out here.
down. It's probably gonna be a step down. I get that because
Yeah.
yeah,
But what
but I'm in Minnesota and they don't have no Mexican food
No,
here.
I understand. It really depends. But, okay, wait, just because you brought it up, I can never resist. My little thing goes off. I am a huge Prince fan. So if you are in Minnesota, that's
Mhm,
one of my favorite parts about Prince. And the state. I've been to
mhm.
Paisley Park, like his compound, and I had the
Yep.
best Minnesota visit. So it's like, even if you don't have Mexican food, you do have Prince, which is pretty cool.
That was quite the experience going to Paisley Park. 'Cause I've only been up here about 2 years and a half, but I came up here and that was one of the first things that people told me to do was to go to Paisley Park, and I was like, Paisley Park, what is that? And they was like, that. I was like, oh, okay, because I love going to see stuff. I went to when I was in Georgia, I had a chance to see Graceland, which
Oh,
is in
fun.
Hickory.
I've never been. I've always wanted to go. Yeah.
Absolutely. So that establishment was very similar to what Prince's establishment was here in Minnesota. So
Yeah.
I had a chance to go for sure.
One other thing I would say on the food note, because when I was coming out to Connecticut, this is a fun little side story. You shouldn't feel weird that you've never been here because I didn't even know that ESPN was headquartered in Connecticut until I interviewed for this job. And again, I had always known about ESPN, like they were always on, like I thought I was very familiar with the company. But I didn't know that. So when I actually, went through my first couple of interviews and I found out that like they were headquartered here and that there would be a relocation and everything. I started looking into, other things about Connecticut that I didn't know just to do my research. Because really the biggest thing that I knew about Connecticut, before like, this job, and I do love it, was, the UConn women's basketball team. That's
Sure,
what I thought of with Connecticut. And no,
sure.
no disrespect whatsoever to the men, but I had just always grown up watching, Gino and his gals like dominating, and again, big sports family, my sister in particular being an amazing, like female athlete. So we always had those games on. So when I heard Connecticut, I was like, oh, like UConn's there because that's what I was familiar with. But a fun fact on the food side, the other thing that I've always associated with like New England, which, Connecticut is in New England, is lobster and shellfish. So
Okay.
even though, the Mexican food might be different than what we're used to, I was so excited about the lobster, and the lobster really has lived up to the hype out here that when I was flying out, and that was like my trip out with my cat, like moving in all my stuff, I actually wore a lobster onesie because I was like, hey, I'm so excited about the lobster and the shellfish. And it was, for the record, December in New England. I was like, I need
Okay.
something to be
Okay.
like excited about right now.
Right. Right.
And I will say that has more than lived up to the hype. I think it's even exceeded the hype, like especially during the spring and summer months. I mean, you can get it year round, but I really do love that part of life. Not that we don't have it on the West Coast, but it's obviously just phenomenal out here. And I love a good lobster roll. You can get excellent lobster rolls out here. So that's
I
a
love
highlight
it.
on the food circuit for sure.
I love it. I love it. Okay. Favorite concert you've ever attended?
Oh man. Okay. So I get asked this a lot because I'm a total music head. And I always in the discussion of like money and what do you want to like put your money towards? I always tell people like experiences are my biggest thing. So I again love concerts. I think it's one of those places where I feel the most alive around like live music.
Okay.
It's and I will drop money. It's always worth it to me. So I will say that right off the bat that I've been incredibly fortunate to seek out a lot of different, shows and whether it's like in Vegas or living in LA for 10 years, I had incredible access to different shows. So I did a lot there. I lived in New York for a year. So I've been in big cities where there's been a ton going on. So yeah, there's so many that come to mind, but a couple that I would mention. I think if I absolutely had to choose the best, and best is so hard sometimes, because it almost depends on your mood, but
Absolutely.
it was so unique and special. And I knew that it was a limited run. So when I moved to New York, and there's actually a fun story behind it. Fun fact, I am an old soul. I am way older internally than I am on the outside. I may have been born in 1990, but my mother is a huge like classic rock fan and she raised me on the classics.
Okay.
Has always told me like, from her generation, that's where the best music comes from. And like, I don't disagree. And that's the music that, has just built up my heart over the years. So I'm definitely an old soul. And off of that, just growing up loving classic rock, when I moved to New York City, something that a lot of people run into, right? I was moving from LA to New York City. So I had to downsize tremendously. I had to get rid of a lot of my stuff
Absolutely.
in the move. It's
Yeah.
just necessary. But then there's a fun story that my mom came out to New York to help me move into my West Village apartment. We go to Bed Bath and Beyond. We do like this, kind of essentials shopping trip, whatever. And then, we had a funny moment where it was like, oh, how do we get this back to my apartment? Because we were so used to having a car. And it's like, we were supposed to get it delivered the next day. And we go, just out to like happy hour or something somewhere. And that, again, my mom and I have been to so many concerts together because I get this love of music from her. And I always just kind of drop little hints to her. And I told her at the happy hour, like, you do know that Bruce Springsteen is on Broadway right now. And I hear that it's really special. It's something very different for him. And of
Okay.
course, I caught her attention immediately. But like, my mother is one of those people where if she's going to see Bruce on Broadway, she's not going to do it from, way back. She's going to, like she's always taught me to do that. Like, enjoy the moment,
Okay.
enjoy the experience. So she basically bartered with me at the table and was like, okay, well, these are the seats that I would want if I was going to do it. And it was only from like 3 rows back. So this was incredible at how close you were with him, like in his living room, pretty much.
So that was pricey a little bit.
But that's what I'm saying. And that there's a funny end to the story. So she was like, that's where I would want to sit. I wouldn't sit anywhere else. That's what I'd want to do. So here's a deal for you. We can, tell Bed Bath and Beyond that we want to cut half of the stuff that we bought so we can save that budget and put it towards the tickets. And you can go without, pots for a couple of months at your apartment and we can go see Bruce. Or we can pass this up and, you can keep like the full lot of stuff that we picked out. And so, of course, my mind immediately went to like, I can live without pots, like for a little while. Like I'm living in New York City. There's plenty of stuff around that I can, make do with. And we went to Bruce. It was incredible. I
Wow.
got half of the stuff that was on our shopping list, but it was really phenomenal. It was pretty much like he took you to church and we were so close to him. It's just so rare that you get that kind of experience and well worth the money. I love that so much. But one other favorite, like very memorable, meaningful concert that I would bring up, and I've had so many in my life, but we were talking about Prince. And unfortunately, Prince is not on my list because, and I hate this, but I had said, even being a lifelong fan of his, you kind of think that people are going to live forever. And he really seemed that way. It's like he was still performing, he was still so prolific. And I had missed a few
Absolutely.
different windows to see him. And I just always thought like, oh, I'll catch him on the next one. Like he's so, superhuman, like it'll be fine. He's gonna be like BB King, like playing into his like I never worried about it because he was still relatively young. And then
Right.
when the news came in that he had passed, I really had this like epiphany in the moment because it wasn't like I didn't treasure concerts before that. But when I knew that I missed him forever, I just had this like lesson from Prince where it was like, okay, well, from now on, if I have like a legend that's nearby that I have never seen, and if I can make that work, I'm going to stop saying to myself, oh, whatever, I'll catch them the next time. And I'm going to do everything in my power to make it work. And I really call that the Prince effect because I was so sad that I ended up missing him that I was like, I don't want to have that happen again. So the concert that I would attach to that is obviously Miss Prince, but I'm also a huge Tom Petty fan. He's like, I always kind of call him like my musical father. I loved his music with my mom. And so very close connection to him. And he was coming to the Hollywood Bowl. And I think it was the 50th anniversary of, of the Heartbreakers tour. And of course, tickets were super expensive. They always are. But I had that like Prince voice in my head. And it was like, you don't want to miss this. Like, who knows what could happen? Like, you should go and see it. And so I bought, a ticket for me and my friend, who also loved him. We went. It was everything that you could hope for and more. Like it really was. It was phenomenal. Like I treasure him so much because he was one of those musicians where just so like humble and positive, and after every song would turn to the audience and be like, thank you, man. And he was so full of like gratitude for what he was doing that he made you feel that much better about your life and what you were doing. It was perfection. Everything you could have wanted as a fan. And then what was wild, and that's why I picked this one, is, we had the best time, treasure it forever. And then he passed away 2 weeks later. And it was just one of those things where you never could have known because he was so full of life at that show. But then, yeah, he was gone within 2 weeks. And I always tell that story to people because I just think it's a good example of really cherish those legends that you love so much, like while you can, because, you know, life is unpredictable and you never know where things could go. And obviously I've seen a lot of other like greats along the classic rock sort of circuit. I mean, Elton John, Paul McCartney bringing out Ringo Starr at Dodger Stadium. Elton John was actually at Dodger Stadium. It was his last you know, concert in the US ever, the one that they filmed for Disney. So that was
Okay.
another like really special one. Vegas is such a great place to see shows. And, you know, I've seen you know, Cher, Bruno Mars, Celine Dion there. Yeah, the list goes on and on and on. Like I've been so
Sure.
fortunate. But yeah, music is life. It makes the world go round.
Absolutely. No question. No question about that. I love all those things and all those places and people that you've seen, by the way. That's tremendous.
Yeah.
Favorite place you've ever traveled to?
Oh man, that's
Favorite
such
place you ever
yeah,
traveled to?
it's I definitely have a travel bug, so it's a tough choice. You know, I have so
Sure.
many more places that I want to see, but I think out of any place that I've ever been, just in terms of like, you know, kind of cherry picking one, I'm trying to think
Hmm.
out of everywhere that I've been.
I would
Um,
say Cabo San Lucas for me. Cabo San Lucas in
so
Mexico.
I have like kind of a two-part answer to that. So
Okay.
in terms of just the pure unique aspect of it, where it was kind of like a once in a lifetime sort of opportunity, I still really cherish it was my sophomore year of high school, and they did trips to South Africa at my school,
Okay.
and it was
Okay.
specifically going to Johannesburg. And you know, you stayed on a nature preserve, so the animals were just like out and about, and we went on these walks and everything. It blew my mind, especially, you know, being only like 14 at the time. I just had never been exposed to something like that. And I think just from like the local culture and, you know, learning about like the conservation efforts at the place we were staying, and just obviously putting myself outside of like my usual like environment and like comfort zone, I grew so much from that trip. So that definitely, you know, would pop out there. In a similar way, when I was in college, I did get to do study abroad. I did it in Sevilla, Spain. And
Oh,
that's one of my
okay.
absolute favorite places, because, you know, when I was there, I didn't end up getting to do the full semester. I would have loved to, but it didn't work with my schedule. But I did get like 6 weeks, and it was just phenomenal. Like the immersion experience of it, like my Spanish had never been better. And again, just really putting yourself like, you know, in outside your comfort zone. And that was unlike with my other trip. You know, I was completely on my own. I made new friends when I was there, and you know, I just kind of, you know, like really stretched my horizons with that trip. So loved that. But the reason I was going to say it's a two-parter, those were kind of two experiences where it was just like outside your comfort zone, doing something totally different.
Okay.
But on the flip side of that, I would be remiss to not mention Hawaii in this conversation, because, you know, in my family, Hawaii has always been our happy place. It's definitely like our home away from home. I feel extremely fortunate, you know, for that. I know that not everyone, you know, can say that. And my mom, you know, just growing up, she's not a cold weather person. So whenever even if
I'm
we
with your
had like
mom on
a
that one.
yeah, exactly. It's like,
Yeah.
so even if we had like a ski week at school, she would always be like, well, we're gonna go to Hawaii. So it was just any opportunity that we could get. And, you know, for a long time, like probably 20 years, we went to Maui. And I cherish Maui, so many great memories there. In the last like 10 years or so, my mom shifted over into Kauai. And so we have a timeshare there now. And, you know, in present day for the last, I think it's been like 7 or 8 years, we go there every year for Christmas, like right around the holidays.
Okay.
And now that we're all older, you know, it's our one opportunity, our biggest opportunity of the year to spend that extended time together. So yeah, Hawaii is incredibly special to me. And I mean, I've seen like all of the other islands as well, but those are the two that we spent the most time at. Um,
Oh,
and there's just something about going there, like with it being so familiar and comfortable, where it's just like a big hug every time that I go. And
mm.
you know, just kind of a break from like the usual stressors in life and, you know, other things that pop up. Like that's just always that level of familiarity where you know that you can just take that, you know, breath of fresh air and enjoy it. So I treasure that like every single year. And I'm so thankful that, you know, Hawaii was in my life from the very beginning.
Awesome. I like that. I like those experiences. Again, those are pretty end of the spectrums, but at the same time, such a blessing to go to those places for sure. This next
Absolutely.
of the favorites is a sports question. Okay, we have
Okay.
two favorites, but it's a two-part one. Okay, favorite sport you like to watch on TV.
Okay.
Favorite sport you like to attend in person. Can be the same sport.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, okay, well I can say immediately my favorite sport that I like to watch on TV is basketball. 100%.
Okay,
Um
I'm with you on
there
that.
yeah, so there's just something about it where it's like the ping ponginess of it. There's always something going on, really at any point in the game. I love the pace of it, which I think like works well with TV because, even if you're doing something else, there's always going to be like a flip going on in the action. And I feel like there are just few lulls in the game. So I really do enjoy that in watching it on TV.
Okay,
In person though, that's actually a really tough one because I think like most sports really benefit from the in-person experience. I mean, obviously that's why like it's such a big industry and like they funnel through so many tickets. So I'll just kind of go through
sure.
some of my favorite parts of like in person because I don't even know if I could pick one necessarily. But I will just say because I feel like sometimes baseball can get a little bit of a bad rap for like if you're just watching it on TV, it can feel very drawn out and everything. I
Sure.
actually really enjoy a baseball game in person.
Okay.
And I think we were talking about it with like Qualcomm Stadium and everything, but it goes way, way back for me that when my family had season tickets at Qualcomm, I, from like a very, very young age, I'm talking like at 5 years old, just
Yep.
so fondly remember going to baseball games. And a big thing that I was always into right away was like, all right, what's our menu for the day? And I would like totally plan out like for every couple of innings exactly what food that I wanted. It was like a full buffet like experience between, like the frozen lemonade and the nachos and the hot dog, and it would all be in like phases. And so
Okay.
the full like experience of it I really liked because it is a little bit more laid back and relaxed. So I could really enjoy that side of it as well without having to be like hammered in on exactly what was going on the way that I am like with basketball when I watch basketball. Um,
That's awesome. I love that. I
I
love that.
I do really enjoy football in person. It's off like I would put football and hockey kind of in the same category because it's so
Okay.
physical, right? So it's very fun. Hockey in particular, just when like you're down by the glass and like you're seeing all of it going on. It's just very fun to watch in person. And
Oh,
I feel
absolutely.
yeah, I feel the same way about, football whenever I go to football games. I mean, overwhelmingly, like my favorite, even though I love all sports and I think there's fun things to be said about the experience
I
for
would say
everybody.
basketball for me, for both,
Yeah,
for sure.
I had to circle back to basketball at the end because I think if I had to pick my favorite sport on both sides of it, it would be basketball because basketball is very fun to watch, in person, obviously, as well. Like you're getting the
Absolutely.
same ping pong sort of element, but it's elevated that much further. If anything, when I'm watching basketball, I think the only thing is, and that's why I brought up the baseball example, I'm not really going to have time to be like eating an entire menu and doing all of that because like there's so much action going on at the
Oh yeah.
actual game.
Constant
So
action, no
yeah,
question.
so that's why I think like it's all about like what the pace of it is and kind of what the fan experience is. And I really do enjoy all of them for different reasons in that way. And then, yeah, it's like even in my time, like I've been to, I just went to the US Open recently, obviously for tennis, and a very different sort of experience from some of these other sports that we're talking about, but also very exciting. Like you're watching, these solo players really excel, and it's a different sort of experience in the moment. But I really did enjoy that too, and I think like the crowd reacts kind of different. So that's really like the beauty of sports, I think, is that, no matter what, event you're going to, I think there's something positive to be taken out of it. But those would just be some of my favorite examples from growing up.
Yep, absolutely. No, no question about it. I love that. Last of favorites. Favorite dinner place or favorite place that you like to eat at. Doesn't have to be dinner, but favorite place you like to eat at there in Connecticut.
Oh, in Connecticut. My mind immediately went to Ever, and I had an answer for that. But let's see here. Is
Hmm.
my go-to place here?
I may stop there. So yeah, definitely let me know.
I'm trying to think in terms of like my spots that I've been to like more than once that I really like here. Just in 1 second. I'm kind of going through my Rolodex.
Okay.
Actually, one place that I really like here, and it kind of relates to some of the other things that we've been talking about. I even brought like, my mom. So, because my mom has finer taste, like she really enjoyed it. I've been, to like work dinners there. I've brought friends there. I just think it's really like very versatile. It's this place called Zohara. So that's Zohara.
Okay.
And it was one of the first restaurants that I went to here actually, because when I was only visiting, my boss took, me and like our team there. And I remember just really loving it right away because it's one of those places, I think it's technically like Mediterranean, in terms of
Oh,
the
okay.
mix of stuff. But what I've always been a really big fan of like family style spots where it's like you can get a ton of different things and just everybody shares and you kind of like pass stuff around. And that's definitely the type of place that this is. So you can have like a wide variety of just really yummy, like Mediterranean, like different kinds of hummus and, like different types of meats. And the pita is just like fantastic. And every meal that I've had there, I've always just really enjoyed like sharing things around.
Okay.
So yeah, I would totally call that one out. That's
I
become one of
love
my
it.
favorites where I've been like multiple times. Another thing that Connecticut does really well is Italian. The East Coast, I would say, like it's kind of known for that. So
Yeah,
I
that's my
I
seat
do
right there.
really totally. So I do really enjoy Italian. There's another spot it's actually close to Zohara, called Treva, and I'm a big fan of that. I've been there multiple times. That's always fun too. Yeah, that whole yeah, if you're ever in like the West Hartford area of Connecticut, I think like they technically call it the West Hartford Center. But there's some other like really yummy places over there. So yeah, always a fan
Okay.
of this.
Cool. I like that. I really do. I'm a huge Italian person. Love Italian food. So definitely appreciate those places for sure. Let's get into what you do on your day-to-day basis. Now,
Sure.
like I stated before, you're an SEO director for ESPN. For those that will watch this interview once it's posted, SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization. And you've been this title for the LA Times as an editor. You've been TMZ as well. You've been for Time Incorporated as well. So you've been doing this for quite some time, SEO.
Yeah.
Talk to me, what do you do on your day-to-day basis, but also what got you into wanting to do a role like this?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, I'll start first with like the day to day. I always kind of describe my efforts within the lens of like our entire team because I think, I guess in a very straightforward way, we're a small but mighty team. Our team exists of myself in the director role, and then, I have two senior SEO analysts. One of them is based in Connecticut with me, and the other one is based in Los Angeles. We also have an SEO freelance writer, which has really been a game changer. I know at the very beginning of our interview, I was talking about, the value of like explainers and pumping out this kind of content that's very search friendly. So when we got that dedicated bandwidth with him, we were able to really increase like our production, which was fantastic. So I would count him in that. We also do have a really fantastic, product SEO manager that we work with, but he's more behind the scenes, like technical troubleshooting and things like that, while we're focused on the content editorial side of things. But we do
Right.
collaborate with him, pretty often. So off of that, now that you have like an idea of kind of what the team is, I usually describe my activities within the sphere of the team because we're all focused on these things. It's a joint effort. So first and foremost, when we were kicking things off as a team, it was very important coming in as the first like kind of full scale in-house SEO team at ESPN and really anywhere that you're starting a new SEO effort, in particular
Right.
newsrooms. I think it's really critical to kick things off with training, because, you never know what other things people have heard over the years. You want to start with a clean slate. You want to really lay a positive foundation as opposed to, just coming in and being like, oh, okay, this is how things are now. It's very nice to get everyone on the same page. So one of our
Absolutely.
biggest priorities is, we rolled out official trainings when we first got here in terms of best practices, but that training really never ends. It's always a matter of just like reinforcing, those core principles, having like a centralized place where we can regularly communicate over articles and provide suggestions. That's a daily process, and working with our writers and our editors across our sports sections. So the initial trainings were rolled out, but then we reinforce it constantly in our daily work and in being involved with the content that's being produced. So I would flag that. And then, a big part of the work that our team does, and I absolutely credit my analysts with this, is being embedded with our sports sections. So they're assigned to, our different leagues that we cover so that they're in those, weekly meetings. And then in those, particular like windows, they'll be, flagging kind of breakout trends that are going on, making it clear to the teams like, hey, this is really big on search right now. Do we have content that's related to that? Also getting looped into like any pre-writes that are being made. Again, just really being actively involved in the content creation process and helping the teams to see, what's kind of coming on the horizon too. So having them in those regular sessions is really important. Reporting is another key part of what we do. So now that we are this, relatively new team, it's really, critical for us to back up, hey, we've made these suggestions, these are the results, right? So we do that in a variety of ways. But we have, like a monthly retrospective report that we put out. And that's just to review kind of like key wins, key takeaways that the team should be aware of from the previous month. I put out an SEO team newsletter as well. So that's similar to, the other report that we put out on a monthly basis, but I put that out every 3 months. And same sort of thing of reviewing like kind of key takeaways, but also including bigger industry updates. Because that's a really big belief that I have, that even though obviously our internal workings are very important and, internal, brand objectives, we don't want sight of the bigger industry. Because in particular, when you work in search, like the, mechanizations of something like Google really can impact what you're doing on an internal brand basis. So I loop in, the teams on, more updates in that arena as well with that. And then really a lot of live event coverage. Obviously, we're ESPN. So that's been true at a lot of these jobs. You were going through some of the other places I've worked at, but in the world of like news SEO, it's so critical to be providing that like real-time guidance to editorial sections during live events, whether it's like sporting events, like, now I focus on, but previously I did a lot of like award shows where you would want to be like flagging real-time trends to editors. And, giving that real-time like guidance on stories that were being produced. It's highly competitive in news SEO. There's so many different publishers gunning for only a little bit of visibility in what we call like the top stories carousel. So it's really crucial to be like firing on all cylinders. And that's why it's a continuous process of like monitoring what content are we producing. Competitor analysis is also really critical during those windows. So seeing like, if competitors are beating us out, like how is their strategy potentially different from ours, and keeping track of that. So the regular reporting, and then we will, put out a postmortem after events too. A big thing is always like, okay, what are key learnings? How can we gather those, whether it's just from like our day-to-day sort of work that we're doing, or the work that we do around tentpole events. We always want to make it really clear to our teams, like this is what, went really well. These are areas for opportunity. These are the key takeaways we should keep in mind. Because another thing working in news is, and this is true of a lot of different types of like SEO content, even if you're outside of news, but in particular in news, there is a good amount of seasonality and those themes that are going to be recurring, right? So that's why it's so key when you're in the moment covering that. Like, we had an NFL draft this year, but we're also going to have an NFL draft next year. It's going to come every single year. So you really do want to monitor in the moment, what are those trends and those kind of takeaways that you could apply, for success in the future. So that's really huge. And then, I dug into it a little bit in the beginning, but we wear a lot of different hats on our team, but I think the evergreen content component is very important. I always look at it as like our legacy that we're leaving within the newsroom. And what we hope, and where we hope to kind of fall within the scope of the newsroom and what we already produce is, we have a fantastic like news desk. They handle breaking news incredibly well, right? So it's like if something just broke, they're going to handle that kind of like breakout sort of blurb, have that covered. We have our sports sections that are also incredibly talented, where like they have the experts in-house, right, to do the deep dives. Where we like to go in terms of our lane is we obviously want to complement both of those things, but we want to
Sure.
really target what are the big questions that people have, like on a simple scale, right? In connection to those things that both of our, other segments are writing. So, a good example of this that, I'm always going for is in the world of like college football and NFL, being, a big football fan, in the last year, we had a pretty crazy 48-hour window where, Nick Saban announced his retirement, and then
Yeah.
Bill Belichick announced that he was, leaving the Patriots. And well ahead of this window, we had brainstormed some evergreen ideas around college football and NFL. And so we had previously prepared articles on the longest tenured college football coaches, the longest tenured NFL coaches, and then the winningest NFL coaches and college football coaches. So a big part of this strategy, and this is why, like I was telling you at the beginning, it's my brother, it's my Mac training, is thinking of what are those questions that people are going to have. Like you don't know yet that there will be a related event, but just in case there is, what would you want to have prepared on an evergreen basis? So we had those prepared. And then what was really nice was once the news actually happened, all we had to do was just go in and update those blurbs on them, update the intro, and then you get a huge new splash of traffic. So I would say that's really like the bread and butter of that evergreen sort of strategy, because really any day out of the year, people could look at those articles, but in particular, you will get spikes in the traffic on them when, that breaking news really connects with it. So that's a big thing that, we're always looking for. Just what are those simple utility questions that we can answer to drive that, kind of traffic consistently and on an evergreen basis. So I'd
I
say
like that.
together, those are kind of the core components of our team, and we're definitely focused on them. As it's a group effort, and there's always, more room to grow. We love collaborating with, our social teams and our video teams, to increase like the exposure around the content that we're creating. So it's always like, audience engagement, our group in general, that covers like our homepage, our app, the different, kind of segments of the site. They're very critical. And again, like collaboration and making sure that these pieces reach the right audiences. So it's a huge, group effort. And we have even more, room that we want to expand into and different departments that we want to work with. We're still relatively young, but I do feel that we've made a great impact so far.
So talk to me about, because that seems like a very like fulfilling job, but also a very detailed job that you got to be on your sugar honey iced tea. We know the acronym. But talk to me if there's an intern or a postgraduate that comes up to you, Louisa, and says, I want to do what you do. What is some advice that you would give that individual?
It's a great question. I think my biggest thing, because when we were talking about like college and everything, and I remember like I'm always very quick to remind folks that, when I was graduating, I graduated in 2012. I didn't land a fancy job right away. I did not. And I had a lot of confidence when I was graduating. It was like, I had that broadcast news background. I had made the decision to, to transition because I wasn't quite ready to move to like a small town market and kind of go the broadcast route, which is what I would have done. But I was very confident. I was like, well, if I move to LA, it's like my backyard, having grown up in San Diego, and I can move into, communications, and, I can find something related to news, PR, like whatever it is. And I was very excited about that. And it was that classic, like, need experience to get experience thing, and it was not a good job market and I couldn't find anything. So the first thing that I would really share, and my mom gave me this advice at the time, is, don't get too caught up in all of that, because I think sometimes there can be a lot of pressure to land a big fancy job right out of school. And I did not. I mean, I did retail for a year because I had that mom that told me, you're not going to sit on my couch and you just need to get a job. So think of stuff that you like. think of something that you're interested in. And, at the time it was like, well, I'm 22 and I'm fresh out of school and I like, Nordstrom's and Bloomingdale's and I like women's shoes. So I
Go.
went there and
There
that
you
was the
go.
job that I got. And another quote that I really, really like that relates to this, it often gets attributed to Abraham Lincoln, but it's also one of those like fuzzy ones. But it's, whatever you are, be a good one. And that's something that I really treasured a lot, like back in those days, and I still think of every single day in my role now. I think sometimes, especially when you're naturally driven, you're always thinking of like, oh, what's the next thing? What's the next mountaintop? What's the next thing I can get to? And especially at the start of your career, I think it's really crucial to just remember whatever I'm in right now, I want to give it the best that I have, because you never know what kind of positive impact you could have on somebody in that role that you have at that moment that could potentially open a new door. I remember even when I was doing, those retail jobs, I always thought of that because in particular, I was in Santa Monica and I would serve different, celebrities, and you just think like, oh, well, who knows if I really impress this person, if I impress that person and, they like my customer service skills and I leave, a positive mark on them, who knows what kind of person I could meet. They could, introduce me to someone else. It could lead me, down that road, So that's something that I would really encourage anyone like fresh out of school and anyone that I ever chat with, to think about is don't get too caught up in like, I have to land, a like, premier like sort of job right out the gate. No matter what you're doing, you can be building your skill set. When I reflect back on that period in my life now, I am one of those people who strongly believes everyone should do customer service at some point. And those particular, like that year that I had really taught me a lot about like human nature and dealing with difficult people.
Right.
Because in retail, you deal with that a lot. And I was, very sensitive at that point. I'm like a naturally sensitive person, but especially back then. And I think it helped me to get a little bit of that out of my system and start to realize like, it's like out of The Godfather, like it's strictly business, but you need to get that and capture that really early on. And so I'm thankful for that period in my life. I think every single stepping stone has meaning, and that particular window just really taught me you just need to have a job, make the most of whatever job you have, go into it with an open mind every single day. Remember that you could meet anybody that could potentially open up a new door. And eventually that is what happened for me. I was in that role, those two roles for a year, and then LinkedIn has helped me a lot in my career. That would be another, kind of thing that I would flag to, really you should be thinking about it long before you're graduating. I actually got my LinkedIn when the platform itself was kind of in its infancy. I started my LinkedIn when I was in high school, when I did my first set of internships, I think it can literally start that early, but depending on your industry, I will throw that out there about LinkedIn. It's like, obviously it syncs more with some industries than others, but really utilizing it and those similar sites for, networking and I would say in particular with LinkedIn, going the extra mile, right? Don't just think of it as like, oh, this is a passive place that I put my resume. That was guidance that I received from, a good friend way back in the day about remember, this is an actual like platform. So engage with it, like comment and, like your friends' posts and the people that you admire, interact with their posts, capture like recommendations from different jobs that really meant something to you to kind of provide a snapshot of the work that you did. And, just viewing it as less of like a passive platform of, oh, I just put my stuff up there, and more of a place where you can actively engage to meet your professional goals. That's just been really, really helpful for me in my career, in particular in the like digital tech space. LinkedIn can be very relevant. So I mean, those would just be. And then another thing, it's very straightforward, but I was very fortunate to grow up with my background and to have certain like privileges in life. I always acknowledge that. But I will say, like, my mom absolutely raised me to have a work ethic, and to never have a sense of entitlement, like the world owes you anything. I do think that's really important right out of school to just remember that. that like a work ethic can really make a big impression on people.
Absolutely.
In particular, when you're first starting your career, like, be that person who will step up and say, yes, I'll take that. I want more experience. Like, be really eager to learn and really actively involved with that process. Don't just expect everything to come at you. I'm a really big believer. Yeah, I mean, I'm a really big believer in don't self-reject. And I think this kind of goes hand in hand with it, where like sometimes you might not even think to ask someone for that or look into that possibility because you're like, oh, well, they didn't reach out to me. But just remember, like, I mean, at all the places that I've worked at, there are so many moving parts to these companies. And, so often things can just get disconnected, even if someone was supposed to get back to you. Another really good piece of advice that my mom has given me all throughout my career, and it kind of relates to the strictly, like professional thing. But don't do your best, and I have to work on it all the time, but to not take things personally, especially when there are those disconnects. I think that's really important, in particular when you're first starting your career, but really your entire career.
That's really important.
That it's only going to help you, right? Because again, there are so many moving parts, especially rejection is going to come up, right? Like it's almost impossible to get every single job that you go for. I mean, I have been there. I have felt the sting. I know what it is. But that was advice that, I received very early on in my career that's really helped me of don't absorb so much of it, like personally, and instead just remember like this could have not worked out for a wide variety of reasons. And a lot of the time you don't end up knowing why something doesn't work out. So instead, just think of it as like, hey, it was a learning opportunity. It was a place for me to work on my skill set. And then another really important piece of advice that has, it served me well from my mom is, if a particular opportunity doesn't work out, don't count out whatever that company was, whatever that organization was, because even if one window doesn't work out, there could be another role in a shorter amount of time than you would expect. So don't burn bridges. Really big believer in that.
Absolutely.
And even though again, rejection can sting, keep a positive attitude, keep relationships up. That's been incredibly beneficial in my career. And then my final thing it's just simple. It goes hand in hand with work ethic, but be very growth oriented. We only get one life. I am a big believer in that and wanting to maximize your time and your efficiency. And I think, prioritizing your personal growth is really important, and to make sure whatever your level of like personal growth and satisfaction may mean, because I think that can vary depending on the person. I don't think it's a one size fits all, but don't lose yourself and what you're looking for in that arena. I think it's really important to feel like you have that growth and that satisfaction. So
absolutely.
My final little nugget.
well said. No, great advice all the way around. Hope everyone when posted listens to that for sure. It is that time though to play the interactive game.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna throw two things at you. You just choose this or that, and we move on. Here we go. First thing is KFC or Popeyes.
Oh man, I gotta go KFC. That was the one in my house growing up. Me and my family were just talking about it last weekend, actually. So KFC.
Good.
So I like Popeyes too, but be KFC.
No worries, KFC. Listen, they're both good. Now I would do Popeyes, but hey, KFC ain't bad. Now that mac and cheese is good. But here we go. We're gonna stay with chicken now, and let's do this: chicken wing flavors, barbecue or lemon pepper.
Ooh. I think I gotta go barbecue because even though I like lemon pepper, it's funny. You're bringing up things where I do like both, but I am a saucy girl and I like that it's a little bit more saucy. So
I feel it. Okay. Do you like your wings wet or dry?
Wet, because I'm a saucy girl.
Okay. Do you like your wings bone in or boneless?
Probably if I had to pick, there's just something about the process of it that I like. Not that I can't enjoy boneless, but I kind of like the classic, like, process of eating.
All right. You like to get a little messy. That's okay.
It
I'm with
doesn't
you on
bother
that.
me. It's the same way that I like, like crab legs and stuff like that.
If you got to work for it, you feel accomplished at the end of the day.
Absolutely. I'm with that. Totally. That's what's up. Okay. These next four have to do with music concerts you rather attend. So, which music concert would you rather attend? Would you rather go see Journey or Aerosmith?
Oh man, I gotta go Journey on that one. Though again, I like both. Journey is just so iconic. Fun fact, I wasn't there, but my mom lives across the street from Petco Park, as I was saying, in San Diego. And there
Yeah.
was a Journey concert going on at Petco Park, and I could hear it from her balcony. And it was
Got
amazing.
you. That's awesome. I like that. That's pretty cool. Okay, here we go. Next one. Kendrick Lamar or Drake?
Kendrick, gotta go Kendrick on that one for
I'm
sure.
with you on that. I'm with
He's a legend, and I'm very excited to see what he does with the Super Bowl. So
Okay. No, I'm with that. Yeah, I can't wait to see what he does down there in New Orleans. That should be good. Should be real
it'll be
good.
fun.
Here we go. R&B one. Which concert would you rather go to, Monica or Brandy?
Oh man, you're gonna pit my girls against each other? That's hard. That's hard.
Yes,
Um,
indeed.
because I'm a big R&B girl, so that's like the toughest one I think so far. I think I'd have to go Brandy, but no
That's
offense
okay.
whatsoever to Monica
And
because
listen, we love both
I
of them.
love
We
both of
love
them.
both.
Yes.
But Brandy, I get it. I totally understand. Well, if you thought that was hard, this is another R&B one and the last one of the music. Which R&B artist would you rather listen to? Would you rather listen to Joe or Jaheim?
Oh man, that's another really tough one because I really love both of them. Um, I think I'd go Joe if I had to pick.
Okay, I like that. I want to know. Joe, I love it. I absolutely love it. That's what's up. Okay. Which
I love your
sport?
taste for R&B. That's fun.
Absolutely, right? That's music that I love to the core. No question about it. So I love all the artists that I threw out there, by the way.
Absolutely.
Which sport would you rather play? Badminton or bowling?
Oh, badminton. Even though it's so funny you mentioned both of those sports. I was in a recreational bowling league when I was younger. We were called the Cool Cats with a K. So it was like
Oh,
Cool Cats.
okay.
So I
Okay.
did play in a bowling league, but I would have to say badminton because it's funny. My mom has made fun of this my whole life. I was saying how my sister is the athletically inclined one. My mom always says that she got all the coordination and left like none for me. But somehow, some way, I'm really good at badminton and I don't know why. And I used to play it at like this health club that we were a part of for many years. And
Okay.
for some reason, it's one of the only sports that like I actually like am good at and can excel at. So yeah, I have a soft spot for badminton, but bowling also I think can be very fun. But I'd have to pick that.
Okay. Okay. Listen, when I come out there, we may have to test that out. We just
Yeah,
might have to test that out.
I haven't played in a minute now, so I'd like to.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I got you. No, that's okay. I got you. Here we go. Do you like desserts?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like my grandma
Okay.
who I was mentioning, like she was the queen of dessert and always was like, her slogan was eat, you're on vacation. And really vacation could apply to many, many different things. So yeah, she had the ultimate sweet tooth and I get that from her.
Shout out to grandma, no doubt. Now listen, I'm gonna throw 4 different desserts. You have to choose one of these you'll never eat again. Okay?
Okay.
So here we go. First one is ice cream. The second one is candy. The third one is cake. The last one is cookies. Which one are you picking that you'll never eat again?
I do love all of those things, but I audibly gasped at ice cream and candy because I'm obsessed with both of those. And even though I enjoy both cake and cookies, I have a bigger connection to cookies, so it would be cake for me that I would cut out.
Okay.
Cake has to
Okay.
be something a little bit more special for me to like really really get into it, even though I still like it. But the first two would be non-negotiables for me. I
That's
absolutely
all
love
right.
ice cream and
That
candy.
is okay. I love that. For me, it'll probably be candy because I can't give up my red velvet cake, but I respect your decision. I love it. I love it. Now, do you like potato chips?
Yes, big fan.
So, same format. I'm going to name 4 brands. You got to get rid of one of these brands you'll never eat again. So, here we go. And Cheetos is not one of the brands. Okay.
Okay.
So, here we go. First brand, Ruffles.
Okay.
Next brand, Lay's.
Okay.
Third brand, Doritos. Last brand, Pringles. Which one are you getting rid of that you'll never eat again?
I think again, love all of them in different settings. I think mine would
Sure.
be Pringles. Because I have like a lesser connection with it. Ruffles and Lay's, I always connect with onion dip. And again, growing up in sporting environments and watching games all the time, I always connect both of those because I would alternate them for like the ridges and then for the classic with the onion dip. Oh, it's just so good. And then Doritos is actually, that's like my favorite chip to eat without anything else, like to just eat the chip like out of the bag. So yeah, I think I could cut out Pringles, though I have enjoyed them on occasion.
Oh yeah, listen, I love all chips. I probably would take out the Lay's for me. I'm not an onion dip kind of person, but I am a buffalo chicken dip.
Nice.
Buffalo chicken dip, I am that for sure. I love that. But the Ruffles, I can't get rid of the Ruffles. My favorite chip is sour cream and cheddar.
Oh, I love
Ruffles.
those. I love
So
those. Yeah.
those are delicious. They're amazing. So I can't get rid of those. But you did very well on the this or that. I really do like that. You was very decisive. You wasn't thicky at all. And I love that. Now I love also asking this next question, which
Okay.
is if you wasn't an SEO person or a director or editor or involved with SEO and journalism, what career path would you have chosen and why?
One immediately comes to mind because you think of this stuff. I think like sometimes the roots of this sort of question start very, very young. And it's definitely dorky. But when I saw the wedding planner with Jennifer Lopez when I was a kid and I was growing up, I became completely enamored with the idea of being an event planner. Not even just weddings, but like events. You can probably tell like I'm not shy and I love going to events and I love socializing and seeing everything that goes into an event. And in particular, I do love weddings, but I also just love events and being out. And it's actually been something very fun being in the SEO industry because we do a lot of like conferences and different things like that. And it's always been one of my favorite sides of the industry is connecting with people at those and going to different sessions. So yeah, so my mind immediately goes there that would just be like a different life.
I like that.
And I really would credit it to J-Lo and the wedding planner because when I saw it, I was like, I work well in like high intensity sort of things. And I know that from my friends who do work in event planning. It's like a lot of deadlines and there's a lot that goes into it. So I think I could keep up with the pace of it, but I also would just love that like I love little details and I put a lot of effort into planning events for other people and like those little kind of sentimental touches. And I would have so much fun coordinating that and working with different vendors and everything that goes into it. I think it would be a very fun and fulfilling process. So that would be my first take. And I love the idea of being like kind of the ringleader of events like that. And also just, seeing the smiles on everybody's faces with like the product that you produce. Like, I think that would be really incredible. But on
That's
more
awesome.
of like a laid back side, my mom and I have talked about this, but I mean, if I could like pick anything where it's just like, hey, you could have like a nest egg, you could just run off and, do something. I always have loved the idea of working, or owning a winery of some kind,
Oh,
and being
okay.
able
I
to
like
just
that.
like live, in Napa Valley or, Santa Barbara wine country, like wherever it might be. I love going to wineries just on my own. It's one of my favorite things to do with my friends and with
Yeah.
my family.
I love wine tours. Wine tours are my
Yeah,
favorite.
I also love wine tours and I love the whole process, especially if you were to own your own winery and help to operate it and everything of, what goes into wine and like coming up with your own varietals and things like that. It's actually a quite
Sure.
intensive process. I always like
I
that
can
on
see
wine
that.
tours when they explain that. So I think that would be really fun to like
Yeah,
create your own line and specialize in something. But then also
absolutely.
every winery that I go to, and I'm sure, some of them are probably secretly very stressed, but I always love the owners and the people that are just out and about, like interacting with folks that come in and they get to, just socialize and make sure that everybody's having a good time. Because again, that like sort of ringleader position of like fostering joy through like what you're doing, kind of similar to event planning, I think would be really fulfilling for me.
I
But that
think that
one's
would be amazing.
obviously yeah, that one's, you got to have like a certain nest egg that you're working with, I think, to make those things come to fruition like really successfully. But I'm a very happy girl at a winery. So for that reason, it would be fun to offer that to other people.
That would be absolutely awesome. I could totally see you doing that. I love wine. Good Cabernet is always good. That's for sure.
For sure.
Louisa, we are coming up on the end, so we are got some rapid fire. We got 2 more questions. So
All
rapid
right,
fire,
let's do
okay?
it.
So basically, first thing that comes to your mind when I say something, okay? Here we go. Waffles or pancake?
Pancakes,
Okay. Burgers or tacos?
tacos. That's hard.
Favorite sports movie?
Hoosiers,
Favorite color?
purple,
Sport that you would dominate in if you play it?
basketball. That's what I have the most like skill in.
Sport that you would absolutely suck in if you played
Football. I'm not good at being aggressive.
it.
I'm a total
favorite
cupcake.
favorite sandwich?
Ooh, caprese,
Favorite board game?
life,
Favorite card game?
poker.
If you had 3 songs or albums that you could listen to with no skips or play on repeat, what would those be?
Oh man. Okay, my first one that comes to mind is absolutely Prince, and it shouldn't be surprising. I could literally, to make it extra fun, I could just make this a Prince themed one because he is like I just love him. So I'll do that to make this extra fun. So my favorite album of all time is Prince Sign of the Times. I think it's absolute perfection. And you know, my friends who aren't as familiar with him obviously assume that I'm going to say Purple Rain because it's incredible. A lot of people call it the best movie soundtrack of all time, and it
Without
deserves
question.
it deserves the accolades.
Mhm.
But yeah, in particular, like Sign of the Times is just it's an incredible feat what he did. It's a double album. There's so much on there. He was so prolific, and there are truly no skips. It is bop after bop after bop, and so
You
many
ain't
different
lying.
moods. So you
You
can
ain't
really
lying.
yeah, so you can pick just like anything depending on like how you're feeling that day and get down to it. So
Okay.
again, I could totally do this Prince themed, but to give in a little bit more variety. So I would pick just off the top of my head.
So give me
Um
2 more. 2 more.
I do really love just because of the time that it came out. It was very like formative in my life. I love Lady Gaga a lot.
Okay.
And when I just
Okay.
need like an empowerment album, like, you know, just
Okay.
again, straight like dance pop, very happy. Born This Way, I think is an incredible album. And I really
Sounds
love
good.
all of the music off of it. And again, it's just like it's an instant like mood lifter. It's just it's incredible. So I really do love that. And then there's so many choices because music is my love language. Like there's so many, but because
Yep.
I said Prince and I said Lady Gaga, I feel like my last one, I want to go back a little bit further. You know, my cat Ziggy Stardust is sitting next to me right now. So I think I'm going to pull from David Bowie. And I love that concept album that he did for Ziggy Stardust, and the Spiders from Mars. Like that's just a fun one to listen to from, you know, start to finish. And 70s rock is some of my absolute, you know, favorite music. So
Absolutely.
I would throw in him as well. But also honorable mentions, like I love Queen. I
Yep.
can, you know,
Yep.
just listen to, you know, their like greatest hits nonstop. Yeah, I mean, I would be remiss to not mention Queen in like my top ones. But
I totally
those are a few
understand.
of my favorite like go-tos. And my other Prince ones for the record would be, you know, Sign of the Times first, 1999 second,
Yep.
and then
Oh yeah.
Purple Rain I would put at number 3. I really do like Purple Rain. But yeah.
Love it. I do. I do. I absolutely love it. No, that's a really an eclectic taste of music, which
I'm
I
very
have
eclectic,
on
if you can't tell.
on my Pandora, I should say. I have the same kind of wide variety of music as well to throw in there. All different kind of genres and stuff like that. This has been absolutely fun. Getting to know you, getting to know your job, getting to know who you are, getting a taste of what you do, how you do it, and who you are outside of occupation. I'm hoping that you have a wonderful, wonderful Sunday. And as I do with all of my podcasts, the very last question I ask is there anything else you would like to add about yourself or anything before we conclude?
No, I mean, I think that I agree that this was a super fun chat. I really loved all of your questions. And yeah, I mean, my biggest thing that I'd love to throw in there is, Just that it was a pleasure to chat with you, and just to
Thank
work
you.
in journalism is such a privilege, and in particular, sports are exciting and they're constantly evolving. So I would just end on that note that it really is an honor to get to work in this space. And I guess my final thing that I would share is I really believe in the power of utility content. You were talking about my why, and I was telling you about my brother, but it's truly a privilege every single day to get to directly respond to the questions that people have. Ever since I was a little girl, I've been incredibly curious about the world, and it's why I love pop culture so much. And I've wanted to know like anything and everything that I can. And I actually think it's cool. It's like because I was that type of kid when I was growing up, and especially when I was a teenager. I think if I told my 13-year-old self what I do now, which is essentially like tracking trends and creating this type of content, she would be really thrilled. So it's awesome when your path kind of syncs with your previous like childhood self. And yeah, I mean, I would just really end on that note of utility content matters, and I hope that I can answer as many questions as I can, that our fan base has. It's really a delight every single day to get to connect with that and connect with our fans on that level. So yeah, I hope to do
Absolutely.
much more of it.
Absolutely. And you do a great job of what you do at ESPN. Once again, I thank you, Louisa, for coming on. Please don't be a stranger. We'll stay in touch, and we will talk very soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Have a great night. It was a pleasure.
You too, Louisa.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.